G'day and welcome back to my channel. Now, despite being in the sick bed this week, yes, I got the dreaded flu. At least it wasn't the man flu, because we all know that's fatal. But no, I've got over the flu. My voice is a bit croaky, but I've still managed to do a little bit of work on the Sunderland in between sneezing and coughing and having big long naps. Most things are all painted. That's it. I like to paint before I start. You know, it's sort of a habit from shipbuilding where you paint everything and then you assemble. I believe I can do that with this kit, and there are a lot of good reasons for it, especially when it comes to the fuselage, because I don't want to have to mask up all these bloody portholes here, right? That's just ridiculous. There's too much of that. Considering that this whole thing is white, I painted it first. So that has not only been primed, that has been painted in a white. It's not insignia white yet. It will be when there's a wash. So that is all painted up, ready to go. I've just got to put the windows in and assemble the two fuselage hubs. Similarly with wings and things, I've painted them, they're appropriate colours, and they're ready to go. Camo's got to go on, of course. There's lots to do, and I'm going to try and get through as much as I can in this video. Does this look interesting? I hope so. Let's get this jumble of mess out of the way and start putting this kit together. Roll the music. Now, I've been putting up some stuff like these blobby pilots and the crew here, and filling in the spots where I cut their arms and their legs. And they're coming up quite good. I've sanded those back. Another thing is the floats. Now, they have terrible joins on the top here. And I've already putted up and sanded this one. But you'll notice the rivet detail is still intact. And this is something that can get lost when you're working on these sort of kits. This little fella, right, so all that stuff. Now, if I get in here with my sanding, right, I'm going to wreck all those rivets. Okay, and we'd like to keep the rivets. You know, somebody might want to count them later on. So, bit of the old tape. Well, this one's looking a bit scummy. How about we get a piece of new tape? Yeah, lash out, Harry. Bugger the expense. We'll get a new piece of tape. Now, you need it at least the length of what you're doing. Alright, you probably don't need to go as wide as this one. Now, the idea is to cover those rivets. Okay, so just over the edge of those rivets and bending it round onto the thing. And if you've been smart when you've put down your putty, you've only put it between the rivet lines, you know. Otherwise you've got a problem. If you've got putty all over your rivets, it's going to be really hard to sort of clean that up. So the whole trick here is get it right. I'll reuse this one because I'm a miserly old prick. And so again, over the rivets, over she goes. Now it's just got to protect those rivets. That's all it's got to do. Alright. Now, magically, you think, oh, well, that's all very well. This is just going to get disintegrated. No, it doesn't. Surprisingly, it doesn't. So now we can go hell for leather, almost, and give this a walloping good sand. Oh, with total gay abandon. Would I say gay abandon these days? Probably not. With total abandon. Or we're supposed to say LGBTQIXWXYZ abandon. Who knows? In my day, it was called gay abandon, which just meant you were having fun. You know, everyone was happy and gay. It wasn't a problem. It wasn't a problem at all. But words change. So, there we go. So I'm ripping into it totally. And I'm going to need a lot more here, so I'm going to have to get quite savage here. Right. So, don't be scared. Go for it. Notice the tape is not disintegrating. I mean, you don't want to be using really rough sandpaper. I mean, this is like for, you know, when you're only doing something fairly soft. So as you can see, I'm getting it right down to the plastic. Okay. I'm smoothing all that out. So that one there is... Alright. So it's just about done. Just about done. We'll have a look. I can always put the tape back on. So, have we lost any rivets there? No. All my rivets are still in place. There you go. You can count them later. Oh, somebody's reversing out there. And on this side, same thing. My rivet line has been preserved, and this is all pretty smooth. I've got a little bit of a problem there I'm going to have to sort of address. I'll have another go at that. But that is an old trick for basically doing some heavy sanding when you've got detail all around. Obviously, if there was any detail in here, you're going to sacrifice it. But at least just preserving as much as you can all around it. Now these engine cowlings, I just put them on for the dry fit and everything, and then I hadn't really checked them, and I primed everything when I put all the white everywhere. And oh my dear, my dear, my dear, they were like drops of, they looked like cat hairs, but it wasn't cat hair, because it you know, basically they'd only come out of the kit and put on the thing, and and when I went and sanded it all, it was sanded out of plastic. But actually, like streaks of plastic and blobs and marks. It looked like somebody had got a whole lot of gunk and stuff into the moulding, and that had all sort of then somehow ruined it, or maybe the mouldings all got scratched and buggered. Don't know. So after I primed them all nicely in white, I've had to actually go back and sand and sand and sand, clean them all out. And as you can see, I've sanded down quite a bit here to try and get through. I wish I'd taken a photo of how they were, but I think you can see some of these where the paint has actually left little white lines, and that's where these sort of gouges and lumps and bits and pieces were. And now they're just little paint marks, and I'll see how they go after the second prime, whether I need to fill those. I don't think so, but they were absolutely horrible. They were just big bump. In fact, there's one there that I haven't actually done yet. Or did I sand over that? Yeah, I've sanded over that, and there's just like the little leftover bit of paint that's showing. So yeah, watch out for that if you've got a kit like mine, that there's just something wrong with these cowlings. They're covered in vomit. The wings also, forward wings, have a terribly deep, it's about 2-3 millimeters deep hole here, sinkhole. And this is caused because there is a little sprue joiner here, right? A little part joiner that sticks out, and that'll extrusion when the moulding process, sometimes it doesn't quite sort of work properly, and the extruded plastic kind of falls in there but doesn't totally fill the hole. So you get that, and there's another one over here because there was another thing there. Surprisingly, this one here, there's a tiny little dimple. I don't even know, can you see it? It's so little. It's hardly worth doing, and it's right in the middle of a whole lot of rivets. So if I did fill it and sanded it, it'd probably be more obvious, because there's no way I could probably protect myself from knocking out all that rivet detail, or I'd be forced to go back and redo it all. So that one I'm going to live with, cover with camo. That one was fairly easy to fix up, and it's fairly clean around there, so it's easy to sand off. That is, and I'll show you my little trick for how I actually get that smooth, because I'm using perfect plastic putty, which is sort of, it's very fine, sort of, was a chalky type stuff actually. I'm not quite sure what it is, sort of like a porcelain or something. And it goes on wet, and you wipe it with your finger, and you can pretty well get it smooth. Great for doing wing roots in aircraft, because you put it on, wet your finger, run it across, job done, that's it. And it'll actually dry to a nice sort of little curve. But when you sort of need it flat in places, you're going to have to sort of dollop it on. And you'll have to go in a number of layers as well. So here, I filled up the underside one, because there's also quite a big sort of little tube here to hold the whole thing together, and that has caused a few of these sinkholes. So let's get one there that it was big enough that I could be bothered with. The rest of them, I couldn't find them. I couldn't really see them. They weren't doing much. So this is on its third layer now. It's I've put a layer of the putty on, and then weighted, and then sanded, and it still was a bit dimply. And second layer, I'm on my third now. I mean, I probably could have got away with it. That bit of plastic putty is pretty well dry now. At least it's dry enough for me to show you this trick. Now, you can just get in there and try and sand like crazy, but again, you'll need to protect rivet lines, that sort of thing. One trick that I use is, because this is a curve and the curve is there, you can use a very sharp knife. That's a brand new blade on there, right? You can use a very sharp knife and run it along the shape and start removing most of the waste. Okay, very gently. You really want the shape to define where your blade is going. Alright, so as you can see, that's already cut it pretty well. And if we can get in this way, it's a bit harder, because there's a little bumpy ridge there that's sort of annoyingly in the way. But the idea is not to cut down any further. And that's pretty well it. Now, that's got rid of most of it. So you're not sanding like crazy, trying to remove tons and tons of filler. So all you've got to do now is give that a very gentle, light sand. And we've got support today from the dog. Oh, everything's happening here today. So a gentle sand on that, and it's pretty well done. Here we go. I'll get off camera and feather that. Well, that's it. It is done, and you have got the shape. You haven't dug another big hole again into your filler, because this stuff is quite soft. It does harden after a while, but At the moment it's quite soft, but that's pretty well filled, that one. At least by the time I get the camo on and everything like that, you'll never see it. Now, one little job that I thought would be harder than it actually was is putting in all the porthole windows. See, they're all in there. Those ones are just drying, and it just finishes it off nicely. Now, I pre-painted all of this, and a lot of people thought I was mad because not only it's primed, it's actually been painted the white that it needs to be, right? And the reason I've done this is I didn't want to have to mask out every single one of those windows and paint this, you know, after I button up the fuselage. The trade-off is, though, you're going to have to get as perfect a join as you can, the fuselage. Now, the bottom half here, that join I have got absolutely seamless. It wasn't that hard. Airfix was pretty good on that account, and it does come to a point, right? It's a hull bottom. So that was fairly easy, so no problems there, and plus it's at the bottom, it's hardly ever going to be seen. This edge I had to do a lot of work to get it very smooth. And if you'd seen my previous video, you know how I had to sort of fettle this quite a bit with the other half to make sure that none of this was pushing everything out of alignment, which was one reason for cementing these in and testing all the turret emplacements, as I did at the front, same with the cockpit and the rear here. Everything was dry fitted, everything was tested to see would the fuselage halves join together, and I got them to pretty well almost perfectly. It's a pretty neat little join. But it doesn't matter because I might need a tiniest bit of putty once they go together, but all that gets painted with Coastal Command camouflage, right? But it's only along the top here, and it's only the top of the wings, okay? So all this lower part, I thought, oh, I don't feel like masking that. There's no need. So that's my method and my madness. Now, to do these windows, you'll need a clean space. So I put down some white paper here on my board because my pre-painted fuselage half, of course, is going to be resting on this the whole time. So we'll need that. I'm going to use Selleys Aqua here, which is a white PVA wood glue, okay? It'll dry clear, but it always has a bit of elasticity. And you'll notice on these, I actually have quite a lot of glue around there. A lot of that glue was put on after they were cemented in, okay? So don't worry about them. They haven't mucked up the windows or anything. So this was the trick, that I actually put the windows in lightly and then come back later once they're set and put a big heavy dollop of glue all around them so that they should never come out. Well, we can only hope. We can only hope. The Airfix parts, they're sort of numbered. It's a bit hard to see, and I couldn't tell if there were different ones for different portals. I've got two sets of instructions, the old one, which is a big expanded drawing, here's a pic, and also the one that came with this kit, which was just a photocopy downloaded for the interweb type sort of instructions, and they're all pretty much the same. So I don't know, I couldn't see that some were thicker than the other. I've just put them in. I put them in as I went, not a problem. Now you could get fussy and say, well, they've all got little depressions in them, they've all got little sink marks all the way along. Sure, if you like, you can spend ages sanding that. Then they'll end up being thinner, and then they won't sit as far into the recessed holes. You could put Perspex behind there, or some acetate or something. Sure, you could do that. You'll end up with a bigger, deeper sort of hole. Lots of things you could do, but honestly, at the end of the day, that's going to be fine, right? That's going to be fine. I have no issue with that. Same with like the rivets on it. I'm not worried. I'm actually going to gently sand around the rivets and make them pop out a little bit. It doesn't worry me. It's the charm of an old kit. All right, well, let's get on with this. I'm going to put in my first porthole window on this side. Now, I just cut them straight off the sprue. Okay. And then there's a little joining bit here, right? The tab. Cut that away as much as possible. Don't go to filing and everything. You'll be here all bloody day. And I even cut in a little bit to the flange. Okay, there's a little flange around here. That flange is for the inside. And then check that that flange is free. Because that's the thing. If that folds back at all, it's going to push the window out. So, dry fit always, always, always. This is an Airfix kit, we dry fit everything. So stick that in there and get a feel. Does it go all the way through, all the way around? Is the flange pushing in? Yes, it is. Okay, we're away. And you do need to do this because some of these portholes, even though I did check that they were all round, there's some that I've missed, and like there's a few of these that I then had to get out my rimming tool and make sure they were perfectly round. So dry fit, because once you commit, it's a bit hard to do much else. Okay, we're going to need that. We have a brand new cotton bud here, which I've dampened with a bit of organic saliva. And we'll need as new toothpick for application. Now the trick here is you don't want to shove it in, you really want it where that flange is going to join. Okay, and only enough, don't go too crazy at this point. As I said, there will be a second application of the glue afterwards, but we'll just, all I want to do is really a little bit in the inside, but mainly so we're going to get that flange to lock in place. Okay, now we should be able to just pop that in. Okay, sometimes they go in easier than others. In it goes, nice firm fit. Now using your fingernail, hold that in place. And there's a good reason for that, and I'll show you in a sec. Now with your slightly damp cotton bud, you can remove any glue that's come through there. Use a dry side and a wet side. My dry side just mops that up. Okay. Now turning over, you can take your finger away. If you didn't use your fingernail, if you used your whole finger, a little bit of glue might get stuck on the finger, and then as you pull away, you'll rip the whole thing out of the porthole. Okay. So we just need to check. No glue on that there, and again, fingernail it, make sure it's in place. There we go. Easy as that. So I'll continue on and put them all in, and then I'll come back later once they're all set, and I'll add an extra bit of glue around them to make sure they're never going to come out. And this has gone reasonably well. There's only been a few that have been sort of fiddly to put in. Alright, that's second last window, but I've got a problem. We haven't got any more on the sprue. I seem to have lost one. Maybe it was never there, who knows, but I definitely am one short. So what am I going to do here? Okay, I could sort of leave it open, I suppose. I could have that one open, but look, luckily it's going to be obscured by the bomb racks on the wings, right? So it's going to be a hard one to see. It's underneath the wing, the bomb racks will be there. So what I can do is, I've got a little bit of acetate here that I had left over in the Stingray, and I've just kind of roughly cut it, and that's going to be fairly easy. This is a nice flat spot, so it's fairly easy to glue in. So let's do that. We'll just pop that in there, and that one, it'll be a bit shallow than the others, but honestly, I'm thinking with everything that's in the way, no one's ever going to know. It'll just be our little secret. And you won't tell, will you? No. In fact, you know, if you wanted to, you could do all your windows with acetate. And you can see, the sort of side on, you'll never know. If you're looking down this way, you'll kind of see because it's got a deeper ridge there, but, you know, you have to be pretty eagle-eyed to notice that. And make sure these guys don't come out down the track. I'm just adding a bit more glue around. If you're careful with this, you won't need to wipe. You just it kind of all joins to itself. You just hint where it needs to go, and as long as you're not pushing too hard. I did manage to lift one of these guys because I pushed it a bit too hard. So it's as easy as that. Just kind of pop your way around. It'll all join together, and you can check that side. Yep. Can't see a thing. Perfect. It'll just make it watertight. So if you're in the bath, no water's going to get in. There we are. Windows are all in the portholes, and I think they're fine. And as I said, you hardly even notice that one is different to the rest. It just it'll all just come together very nicely. And coming together is what we'll have to wait for the next video, when I'll finally glue all this up, put the interior in and lock it in for the last time, and then I'll start adding the wings and the cowlings and the bits and pieces. I mean, I've got it all prepared. I'm all ready to go. Just didn't get as much done as I hoped this week because I've been a bit crook, but I'm happy with those porthole windows. That's good. And with a bit of luck, there were some tips and tricks there, and somehow I managed to make a video out of all this. So look, if you enjoyed it, usual thing, you know, buttons down here, like, you know, comment, subscribe, all that sort of stuff, and by all means, buy me a curry. It really helps me out. Certainly cleans out the nasal cavities and I can breathe. I'm not feeling well. I hope to be in much better vocal tone next time when we start putting some camo on things like that. And also finally get the metal barrels in those guns. I've been promising that for about 2 months. We will do it. Okay, that's it. That's all I got to say. So it's goodbye from Australia and it's hooroo from Harry Houdini.